speak in who started the meeting?
I've got you.
No, someone clicked on the start button before the time. So
Okay.
so welcome the people who joined already. Welcome. We are not yet live, but we will be live very soon. In the meantime, what I was saying to Juan is that, Juan, I will be sharing some slides to speak about the Learning Week and the captions. Maybe when I will be saying these things in English, you can repeat in Spanish.
Okay.
C'est possible? Is it possible for you? Because I think that the people joining us today and listening, I think that their English level is very bad. And I think that if you would support in Spanish, they would appreciate.
But all that Elisa's
No.
Okay.
Just the part at the beginning where I will be speaking. I will ask you. I will ask you to translate me.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. No problem.
Excellent. Super.
Thank you.
Muy bien. Thank you. And also, if you want, Juan, to say a few words at the beginning in Spanish to your local people so that they can listen to you in Spanish and understand the purpose of this session, you are welcome to do so.
Okay. In Spanish.
In Spanish. No English.
Okay.
No English. No English.
No English.
Español. Español.
Sí. Okay.
Okay. Muy bien.
Okay.
Allora. Super. Elisa, any final question?
Nope. No questions.
No
I'm
questions.
okay. Yep.
Excellent. So I have the intro video and I will start to run it in few minutes.
Sure.
So we are 54. Yeah. I will run it start in 30 seconds.
Okay.
So we've got a few people joining already. Just a couple. Your microphone is
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to one of the last AMU sessions held during Learning Week. This is a special English Forum session that we've scheduled thanks to Juan. Thank you, Juan, from Mexico.
Yes.
But we open the session to everyone around the world. But if this is your first time to our Learning Week session, no problem. We have you covered because we recorded all of the sessions, past sessions from Elisa, our great teacher that will soon come on screen, but also from the other speakers from the other sessions that we held during Learning Week. I've just posted the link in the chat and you can click on it and discover. What I would like now, yes?
I will start to recording. Is possible? Yes.
It's already recording. It's automatic recording, yes?
Okay. Okay.
Yes, we are, as I was saying, we are recording all of our sessions. So if someone is missing any of the sessions organized by AMU, the recording is available in the link that I've just posted in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
So people can click and watch recordings of past sessions. Now, one of the most important things that I will now ask your help on here is because I know that it's difficult to follow live sessions in English for the people for whom English is not the first language. And this is why here at AMU, we can turn on subtitles, like in a movie, captions, by following the instructions that you see on screen. So people, if there is someone here in this call who wants to hear the words in English, but see the translation in their local language, they can click on the three dots that they see on screen, then click on language and speech. I don't know, maybe you can help me with the translation, Juan. And then click on turn on live captions.
Que se le dé click in the door. Again.
Yes, but it's important, look, it's important not to change the spoken language, but only the caption language. The spoken language must stay English because we are speaking English.
Que ustedes le den clic para que les haga la traducción automática, por favor. Porque sabemos que esto no es nuestra lengua natural, entonces se nos dificulta un poco. Entonces hay que ponerle en translation, por favor.
Perfecto. Super. So the spoken language needs to stay English because we will be speaking in English here all the time with Elisa, and this is why we are here today to learn English. But the caption language below can stay in your local language if you prefer.
Okay.
Okay, muy bien.
Okay, muy bien.
Super, muy bien. If you have questions, please let me know in the chat and I will be able to assist. Now, I leave the floor to Elisa, our great English teacher with a broken hand.
It is on the mend. It is getting better. I'm nearly there. Welcome. Hola. I hope you are all well. I'm going to load our slides. Hopefully it will. Let me see. More places. I need to look in more places. It just wants to go to OneDrive. Come on, that's not going to browse my computer. There we go. Better. Open our slides. Let's wait for them to open. Here they come. Yay. Veronica gave the right face. I could see by her face expression that the slides are showing. Our topic today is called Communication Methods in Global and Traditional Teams. We can talk about ArcelorMittal as a big global team. We work with people across the world. You are in many different countries. Thank you, Mercedes. Traditional teams are more like those teams that are in one country and they stay in one office, maybe. Yeah. So you don't have to speak to people who don't speak your language. You're probably familiar with them all. So let's have a look at ways of communicating. That's what we mean by communication methods. So our aims for today, and remember, you can ask questions at any time. You can either type in the chat or you can raise your hand and Veronica will turn your microphone on. Please feel free to speak as much as you like. This is an interactive class. So we're going to discuss different communication methods. Different methods to communicate. One of them is what we're doing now, video conferencing. We're going to evaluate or decide which advantages and disadvantages these different methods have. So this is our general topic. If we look at our language focus, we're going to develop or practice some phrases for evaluating advantages and disadvantages. And we're going to develop some phrases or language for dealing with modern forms of communication. How do we talk about this, what we're doing? Quite often we have to do this when things are going wrong. So we'll practice a few phrases for that. Let's begin by doing some reading. When you see these kinds of slides, I want you to listen and read along with me so that you can hear how these words are pronounced and how the sentence intonation goes. Are you ready? Let's read. I'll point to it so you can see where we are. Communication methods in global and traditional teams. Communication has been changing rapidly in the past decade, and even more so during and since the COVID pandemic. The development of communication technology has allowed businesses to grow and innovate in new and exciting ways. This has led to an increase in global teams and has made remote working the new normal for many people. Communication is becoming instantaneous. It's a big long word meaning instant. And much more accessible for both larger and smaller businesses. Before we begin to talk about the pros and cons of different ways of communicating, let's first look at the different types of communication methods available to businesses. I've got 6 different communication methods in the box here. Video conferencing, shared virtual bulletin boards, social media, telephone calls, instant messaging or chat, and email. So here are 3 descriptions, and you can see from here that there are 2 slides in this task. So here are the first 3. Carefully read through these and decide which one it's describing. Let me know if you need some help with any words. I'll give you a minute to read. How are you doing? Shall I read them with you? Despite predictions that it is facing obsolescence. Obsolescence means no longer useful, old-fashioned, it doesn't work anymore. We're not going to use it anymore if it's obsolete. So despite predictions that it is facing obsolescence, it is still widely used and can contain greater detail and length than messaging, which is often slow to be seen and responded to in a global team. Gabrielle, yes, I can understand why you would put telephone. It's something we think of the telephone as very old, don't we? We've got other ones saying telephone as well. Mercedes, oh, I can tell you've done this before. Mercedes is the one who's saying email. Bulletin boards. Bulletin boards probably were obsolete, but now we have virtual ones. Let's see. Email. So a little while ago, once we started doing instant messaging, many businesses thought that they would stop using email, but that hasn't turned out to be true. We still use email a lot, don't we? Okay, let's have a look at number 2. Now cheaper and more widespread thanks to services like Zoom and Google Meets, Teams. This has benefits over standard conference call. However, it's also hindered by geographical time zones in the same way as the telephone. Video conferencing. Yeah, Zoom and Google Meets made that one easy. Well done. Well done. Nice. Excellent. Yep, we're all getting that one. Well done. Shall I read number 3 now? A traditional method of voice communication, which provides a human element to any contact, but suffers from the constraints of geographic time zones and remains the most expensive method of communication for global teams. Oriana, very quick. Indeed, this is where the telephone fits in. It's a very traditional method of communicating. And when you really want to speak to a person in person, that's quite often the one we use. Okay, let's go to the slide number 2. Number 4 here. Many of these tools are useful because they are instantaneous and can be utilized for group chats. However, they're not secure and open to hackers and viruses. They can also be easily sent to the wrong recipient. Florence, so quick. Or is that Michelle? Sometimes I can't tell which way around the names go. It's got a comma, must be Florence. Yes, thank you. Thank you for confirming that, Florence. It's important to get names right. Yeah, instant messaging and chat. Have you noticed how on the news, quite often politicians or famous people get caught out with what they have sent to each other in chats? And it's very often the reporters who find it. So yes, if you want to be secure, you might need a different system. Number 5. This kind of profile is most useful in advertising a company to the public, but it can also be set up as a tool for connectivity and project work between members of a global team. What do you think? Absolutely. Nice, nice, well done. We've got social media there. And the last one's not hard to work out. Virtual bulletin boards. These can be the most collaborative tool as any team member can access and update, post questions, etc. The downside is they can be time consuming to use and aren't always suitable for action that requires immediate attention. So just like putting a piece of paper up on the notice board. You can't quite be sure that people are going to see it instantly, but they're still useful for sharing a certain amount of information. So we've started to get into the advantages and disadvantages. Let's practice some ways to talk about that. I quite like this picture. Some of us actually do our work like this, comfortably sitting in a comfortable chair, doing our online meetings. Now, I could have written advantages and disadvantages of communication tools, but these are quite long words. You can also call them pros and cons. Your task here is to look at the communication methods in 1 to 5, so these ones that we've just looked at, and have a think and discuss which advantages and disadvantages are true for each. For example, if we look at email, we could say an advantage is it leaves a written record. But also a disadvantage, or the downside of it, is that it takes up a lot of time. How much time do you spend on emails? Clearing all the junk ones, deciding which ones you have to respond to. It takes a lot of time, don't you? So, in the chat, tell me about 1 or 2 of these and whether they have some advantages and disadvantages. Or you can speak. I'm very happy for you to speak if you'd rather talk.
And if there is someone who wants to speak, you can click on the virtual hand on top. Like, let me show you. Like I'm doing now. You see that there is a virtual hand. I clicked on this virtual hand here.
Up in the toolbar.
And we will unmute
Turn you on.
Turn you on, because by default, we've decided to mute microphones and videos, but you can, feel free to speak up and practice. You just need to raise your virtual hand and we will unmute you.
Nice. Mercedes, you're telling me that number 1, video conferencing is a more personal form of communication, but on the other hand, it can be significantly affected by technical issues. I would agree with you. Yeah. Certainly, it doesn't matter how often you use these video conferencing tools. They either get updated or you have to log in again or the settings are different. They can be quite technically challenging. It's very nice if you set up one method and everyone agrees to use the same method. It makes it easy. I'll let you in on a secret. Some of my classes use Teams, some use Zoom, some use Google Meets. Let me see. Another one uses Skype. So much choice today. We need to be flexible. Instant messaging and chat. We call it instant because it goes very quickly and we very often get a quick response. That's true. It's very handy, isn't it? And the disadvantage, you're quite right, is it's not very secure. Any others? What about social media? What do you think? Can you give me an idea of how you choose which method you use? Through social media with not very secure. Absolutely. What would be an advantage for social media? Mercedes, do you think that you'd get quite a quick response from social media? Certainly. Imika, certainly a large audience. Absolutely, that's an advantage. Yes. What about Mercedes if somebody's not looking at their social media? I know some people my age who are a bit resistant to it, so they don't look at their Facebook or their Twitter, X. They don't look at it quite so often. I would say that it kind of depends, don't you think? It depends on who you're communicating with. As Emeka points out, social media would be great for contacting a large audience. So advertising, especially, we see a lot of it. It depends. That's true, of course. Absolutely. So we're making decisions about the advantages and disadvantages of all these methods. And it depends on the different things like what are we communicating? Is it sensitive? Is it urgent? Is it personal? Is it something that you want to get through to a particular person or a large group? So lots of things that we have to think about and weigh up. It's a phrase we will use today. Tell me something about telephone calls. What's an advantage of a telephone call? A more personal form. That's right, because you get exactly the person that what you hope. And it can be costly. Yes, we tend to link into the internet these days when we call, don't we? Things like WhatsApp, we can make calls that way. But if we're calling on a telephone network, that is still quite expensive. If you watch enough spy movies on television, you might decide it's not very secure as well. Well done. Great responses. It's got us really thinking about the advantages and disadvantages, doesn't it? So let's have a look at some expressions for that now. Here are some expressions. Things like an important advantage of, another negative aspect, a benefit, an upside, a minus, a major drawback, one plus, one downside, one criticism I have on the positive side. So we've got 10 different ways here of talking about advantages or disadvantages. But which ones are which? Can you sort them into the box? Should we put A into the pros box or the cons box? Where does A go? Jeanette, you're way ahead of me. Very nice. Definitely A. What about B? Absolutely. A negative aspect is a disadvantage. A benefit. A benefit of something. Yes, it's a pro. Absolutely. An upside. Yep. Again, a pro. Side. One minus. One minus in this idea is a con. Absolutely. It's a con. A major drawback. Yeah. Well done. A drawback is a disadvantage. 1 plus. Oriana, you're so quick. And Florence and Flor, well done. A plus is, of course, a positive. Yeah? A downside. Nice. H is a downside. Are you starting to see the patterns here? A benefit and a drawback. An upside, a downside. A plus and a minus. We quite often use these to contrast each other. What about one criticism I have? Are you talking about it an advantage or something you see as a disadvantage? That one's making you think a bit. Well done, Flora. If you have a criticism of something, you are pointing out a disadvantage. Yeah. So a criticism is the noun form. If you want to use the verb, you can say, I criticize. Yeah? I am criticizing this particular point. And the last one looks very positive to me, on the positive side. We can say on the positive side, on the negative side, or another negative aspect. So you can see these phrases give you a variety of ways of putting them together. You can mix and match them a little bit. So you could say another minus, if you've just thought of something else that's a disadvantage. These are very important phrases to practice for when you are discussing ideas or plans or projects with your colleagues. So everybody needs to give their point of view, and it's a good idea if you can actually describe why it's a good idea, why it's not a good idea. I mean, you might say, I disagree, but it's much more helpful if you can say, well, I disagree because I can see two negative aspects to this idea. You see what I'm trying to point out? It's a way of putting these phrases to use. Let's practice it in a conversation. Are there two brave people who would like to read for us today? Put up your hand if you are willing to read.
Yes, don't be shy. Again,
don't be shy. And we are gender neutral. It doesn't have to be a male and a female. Anyone can be Adam and anyone can be Iris. Be brave.
Oh, yes, we have one brave person already.
Excellent.
2, wow.
2, yes.
Today it's
Oriana,
amazing.
Welcome. And I didn't see
Mercedes.
The other name. Our two favorites. You've done this before, haven't you? Well done. Thank you for volunteering. Oriana, would you like to be Adam? And Iris? Mercedes, you could be Iris. Once your microphone's on, turn your microphone on yourself at your end and take it away, which means you can start. I can't hear anyone yet.
No, you need to unmute.
Yes.
I've just come back from holiday and I can't believe how many emails I have to get through.
Oh, I know. The number of emails we receive daily is one big downside of the emails, especially when you work in different time zones and they arrive at all hours.
Yes, that and waiting for a response, which can take days. I much prefer instant messaging. The one major advantage is that you can get a response much more quickly.
Nice.
True. Chat functions have made life easier in some ways, but the pressure to respond instantly when you're often busy is a disadvantage to me.
That's true, but it has reduced the need for meetings every time we have an issue.
Yes, that is definitely a plus. I think the biggest game changer is our business has been video calls. I love being able to organize a meeting anywhere in the world in minutes and to see the person rather than relying on words.
Nice, well done. Don't they have beautiful pronunciation? I can't give you any more tips. You both did really well. Did you listeners catch all those phrases for describing advantages and disadvantages? So talking about the downside of the number of emails and the major advantage of getting a response quickly. Do you all agree with these thoughts? Do you think that the pressure to respond instantly is sometimes a disadvantage? What do you do? Yeah, I agree. You know, sometimes when I get those instant messages, I just have to ignore them for a moment. Because sometimes you need to think about things before you can respond. Again, it's one of those areas that you need to think about and decide what's the most useful. But time is moving on, so let's recap our phrases that was so beautifully read by Mercedes and Oriana. Thank you. An important advantage of email is that you can put in a lot of detail. The benefit of, another positive aspect, an upside. One plus is on the positive side. And then over here we've got the disadvantages. A big disadvantage of writing a long email is that people sometimes don't read to the end. My recommendation for email is to keep things short. A major drawback, another negative aspect, one downside, one minus, and one criticism I have. This last one is not actually the disadvantage. It's your response to a disadvantage. So it's a little bit different from these others. But certainly it means you're talking about a disadvantage. Oops, let me just move on here. Of course, sometimes we actually need to talk about both sides because we have to think about these, especially when we're making decisions. I can see both sides of this issue. You might actually use that in a discussion when you are trying to make a decision with your team. You've got two people in your team talking about opposite things. One person agrees, one disagrees. You've talked about the advantages, the disadvantages. And you might say, I can see both sides of this issue, but we have to make a decision. So what happens then is that we weigh up the pros and cons. You can see the little man here. He's literally weighing how heavy are these. So it could be that you have a lot of disadvantages in your decision. And you might think about this one and this one and this one, but they're all little ones. They're only minor disadvantages, not major, just minor ones. And maybe on the plus side, you've got only 4 advantages, but they're really significant. They're quite major advantages. Then perhaps the 4 pros actually still outweigh the 9 cons. This is why we talk about weighing up the pros and cons. Does that help you with some language for talking about advantages and disadvantages? I hope so. Tell me about it later. Let's now have a look at some expressions for different communication methods. Want to read with me again? The change in how we communicate has impacted all areas of our working life. This is also true of the language we use. Text language, for example, was very popular when mobile phones were first used and the message length was limited. We have certain expressions that we use to communicate quickly, particularly for instant messaging, which uses abbreviations that are usually not used in email, and certainly not the way we use them in speech. Let's look at some of these key phrases needed for some of our more modern communication methods to get the most out of them. This is the fun part. I wonder how many of these you use. Here is a conversation between Ken and Carol. I'm just making those up. Hey there. Hey, you there? You kind of need to be able to understand what's being asked here. Hey, you there? Which actually means, are you there? Oof. And Carol responds with, yes, all okay. Oh, wait a minute, it's a question mark. Yes, all okay? Yes, finished the presentation for the meeting Friday. Again, it's a question. All okay? Yes. Finished the presentation for the meeting Friday? Question. Nearly, it's still a WIP, a WIP. I wonder what that means. You done the report? Not yet. I'm in meetings until EOD. So we'll look at it tomorrow. Okay. BTW, are you here next week? Here Monday and Tuesday, but the rest of the week. Okay, great. Ooh, coming to the meeting next at the office. How are we going to translate this? Here are the expressions which are match up to these abbreviations. See if you could tell me which one belongs where. So number 1. Number 1 matches with. Oops, I clicked in the wrong place, sorry. Number 1 matches with. Where do I have to click? Uh-oh. Sorry. I need to do. This is an animation that's not working.
Can I help Isa somehow?
I think the animations have just disappeared.
Okay.
So I can see that you have matched up 1 with D. Is everything okay? Absolutely. Nicely done. I'm sorry that the animations aren't working. I don't know why that is, part of this technological challenge. Every time there has to be something. Well done. 2. What do we think WIP means? Absolutely, it's an abbreviation for work in progress. Work in progress means I'm still working on it. I haven't finished. I'm making progress, but it's not finished. Number 3, EOD. End of day. Nicely done. End of day. Number 3 is E. Number 4, BTW. By the way, it's a strange little phrase, but we use it quite often in English to signal that we're talking about something different. We've been talking about the report and the presentation, but now I want to tell you something different. So I say, by the way, are you here next week? And Ken responds, here Monday and Tuesday, but out of office. Absolutely. Nicely done. Out of office the rest of the week. So that means on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we can't get hold of him in the office. Okay, great. Are you? These letters stand for the words, are you? Like this, are you coming to the meeting at the office? Well done. You are all text savvy, probably more so than me. I'm still old-fashioned enough that I actually want to write the whole word. And my kids think I'm very slow, but I don't mind. I'm an English teacher. It's true, though, that language varies. By the way, in today's current climate, a huge proportion of our meetings are done online. It's cheap, fast, and easy to organize. However, as we mentioned, they can be susceptible. Susceptible means likely to happen. They are a little bit vulnerable to technical issues. Knowing key phrases for dealing with these is important. Do you ever have any technical glitches, some challenges? There's Veronica nodding. We have them all the time, don't we, Veronica?
Yeah, literally all the time. At least weekly here at AMU, we have one technical glitch with Teams.
Yes. I think Teams actually, challenges us, because every time I use it, it's just a little bit different. Do you have any technical glitches that you have to deal with regularly? No sound and cannot share the screen. Oh, yes, I know that one. The sharing process must still be quite complicated in the background. I'm not an IT person, so I only have the user experience view. Quite right. Well done. So let's look at some of the language we could use when we're in a meeting and things don't go as planned. We tend to use these phrases. Jacek, oh, you are so lucky. Teams works fine. You must be more tech savvy than me. Actually, if you're using it regularly and you just have the same settings with the same people all the time, that's usually much easier. But as I was saying, I work with different teams around the world, and everybody has their own way of working. Let's have a look at these phrases. Oh, look, you're onto them already. We can get cut off. We can break up. Sometimes the image freezes. Usually when we talk about freeze, it means something very, very cold. But when things get very, very cold, especially water, it becomes very still. It doesn't move. And that's what we mean in this context. So the picture will freeze. How often have we frozen on screen while we're pulling a really silly face, To mute, we're very familiar with that one. I can't hear you, you're on mute. To switch off, to turn on, and to double check. Now let me see, you're whizzing through the answers. Before we all begin, could you please double check your video and audio? Double check that they're working. Sometimes before you get into the final log on part of a video conference, the program will give you an opportunity to test your video and audio. Make use of it, because sometimes it's very useful. Could you please something your microphone? Mute your microphone. Nice, well done. I really must insist what do you do with your phones when you're in an important meeting? We could mute our phones, but we've already used that one. Switch off. Yeah, switch off. This is one of those things we call a phrasal verb. It's actually a verb with a preposition after it. So if you learn the word switch, for instance, you will need to learn that it goes with switch on and switch off. Sometimes you can use switch over when you're changing. Your the connection isn't stable. You're breaking up. Yep. You're breaking up. You can switch over your phones. Yes. If you're switching over from one phone to another, it's not really turning it on or off. Okay? Switching over is something different from switching on or off. Let me see. I switched over to my big computer to run this lesson, but before I was working on my laptop. Got the idea of switch over now? It's making a change. Cool. Good. Thank you. Good question. Michael, I think what did we do? What did we do? Number 5. Some of you have already answered number 5. Yeah, I think we got cut off. And we didn't hear what you said at the end. Well done. Florence is ahead of me, up to 6 already. Sarah, we can't hear you. Could you turn on? Absolutely. These are interchangeable. You can turn on something and you can turn it off. You can switch it on and you can switch it off. Okay, you can use both of those. If you turn something over, that's different. For instance, I am going to turn over the page. Yeah, can you see me there? Turn over the page. If you turn something over, it means you're seeing the other side of it. So it's a bit different from switch over, but it does mean a change. This is where language gets quite complicated. And the last one, your camera has frozen. It was the easiest of the lot, wasn't it? Well done. A quick true or false, and then we're going to wind up. Tell me if you think these statements are true or false. Number 1, email is the quickest way to get a response from someone. What do you think? You're quite clear about that one. Sometimes we have to wait a long time for people to respond to an email. Instant messaging can be a distraction during meetings. True or false? Too true. Absolutely. When something's very true, we often say, oh, too true. This kind of too. Too true. With so much communication now online, it is important to practice phrases for dealing with technical issues. True or false? Too true. Well done. 3 true. Now we're playing with humor. This is playing with language, and making each other laugh is one of the biggest steps in language learning. Once you can start to make a game out of it, you're doing really well. Number 4, telephoning people is the most efficient communication method for global teams. You're saying false? I think I agree with you. It's not the most efficient. Perhaps if the time of day works, but it's very difficult to find the right time of day. And the last one, video conferencing is cheaper and more environmentally sensitive way to connect with people across the globe. True. And in these days of global warming, I think that if we don't have to fly to the other side of the world, then we probably shouldn't. Well done. Well done. So in this lesson, we have discussed different types of communication methods. We have evaluated or weighed up the advantages and disadvantages of different communication methods. We've developed and practiced some phrases for evaluating advantages and disadvantages, and we've developed some phrases for dealing with modern communication. All of that's quite a big tongue twister. And we have a minute or two to spare for some questions. Thank you for your great participation. I can't see your faces, but I enjoy the words coming by on the chat. It's great that we can interact like that. And I really appreciate those people who want to turn on their microphones and read and chat to us. Well done. Any last minute questions? It can be language, it can be communication. Don't forget to give us a bit of feedback. Let us know what works for you in language learning.
Indeed, you are, let's say, taking the words out of my mouth. Can I use it?
That's exactly the right expression.
Excellent, because I just wanted to, let's say, ask people to provide us feedback with the link that I'm posting now in the chat.
Both positive and negative. You can give us an idea of the pros and cons of this kind of lesson.
Exactly, but most importantly, I've seen that many people have joined a little bit later, not at the beginning of the session. So I would like to repeat myself in saying that all our sessions are being recorded and that people can find recordings in the link that I will post here in the chat in few seconds. I lost it. I just had it and now it's gone.
One of those technical glitches.
No, it's not because I closed the PowerPoint. So I'm reopening it again. And I will post the link in the chat for the people to find past recordings of all AMU sessions, but also past recordings from English forum sessions with you, Elisa, that we had.
And there's a lot of those
in the last weeks now for Learning Week, but we have plenty from many years in the past.
Years, we're counting it in years now.
And before we say goodbye, I would like people just to respond to the poll that they see on screen and rate this session with Elisa from 1 to 5. How much do you think you deserved today, Elisa?
That's entirely up to the wonderful participants.
Well, so far, 13 people voted and it's 5.0. So no one even gave you 4. No one dared.
You're wonderful people. You are wonderful people.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Juan, do you have some closing words that you would like to say?
En español. My dear Verónica, muchas gracias a todos por la participación, a Elisa, a Stacy, la maestra, la doctora Stacy, Verónica, maestra, el maestro Vincent, muchas gracias por apoyarnos. Siempre nos apoyan y tengo la seguridad que nos van a seguir apoyando a todos. Muchas gracias. Y gracias a los participantes por el empuje que tienen para lograr estos objetivos de aprender el inglés. ¿Nos podrías poner el video, Verónica, por favor? The first video. Do you remember the first in the beginning?
The beginning, I have the video, yes.
Yes, please.
I played. Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Let's play the video and then we say goodbye. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Goodbye.
Muchas gracias. And see you next time.
Next time. Thank you.
Boogie going.
Gracias, hasta luego.
Hasta luego, hasta la vista. Chao, chao.
Ciao.
Hasta la vista, chao.